service engineering, which you go to 20,000 here. Is that something that eventually our civil attorney or engineer can do?
That's the big question. I don't know. You guys were going to ask him if he does those plans, site grading, stormwater management.
Okay, so the way I'm thinking of that is, I don't want to hit him with him like right off the bat. But if in 3 or 4 months when things kind of settle down before final budget, we might approach him to say, is this something that you could help us save money with? And see, so that 20 grand could be in flux, so to speak.
It doesn't really save you much money because if we have to spend money, then we're getting money back. It's a wash.
Well, this is a reimbursement expense.
Reimbursed by developers at 105%.
Okay, so then I'm not gonna worry too much about that.
It'd be nice to have it in-house for some of the road stuff. Definitely the road stuff, but yeah, I'm not gonna pressure him initially. On that.
I'm really hoping he'll at least raise half his salary, just what he saves in the road department. Okay, so then we're talking of a $2,065 increase on the B budget. A budget we won't know until we get kind of towards the end and see what funds we have. But you let us remind us about Lori's step.
Well, see, the 850, that's the education other. Yeah, because things are just getting more expensive for the education. During the COVID years, that stuff really slowed down, but now people are starting to hold their classes again. And I'd really like to get Todd some training of some sort. He is doing really good, and he's to have a certified, it's called CEPI, Code Enforcement Professionals of Idaho. He had a training every year. And if they ever start doing that again, I'd really like him to go to that. There's some other types of webinars and things that he can take.
So is he sending out letters and doing all that?
Without,
What was the gal before? Lee. He's just slipped right in doing kind of the same stuff she did.
he's doing great.
Has he got any heat or anybody yelled at
He's a
him?
pretty happy-go-lucky guy. I ask him to go out on a site visit. He jumps in the car. Has no hesitation whatsoever.
He's a big guy.
And he seems to enjoy it. I really like what he's doing.
Good.
Catching on really quick. Lori says he's got on great.
That's awesome.
They have constant. But yeah, for the A budget, I wanted to remind you about Lori's AICP. Passing that test, we'll get her that completely done. And then with consideration of the years of service in our department, we've lagged way behind on the years of service. For the A budget, and then depending upon your decisions and impact areas and things like that, would be the deciding factor on if we needed additional personnel. You guys are aware of that.
Yeah, I think, I don't know, we need to share here to kind of discuss what's our plan on that. But once the law kicks in July, then I think we need to approach the cities and say, hey, here's the issue. How can you provide services within 5 years? If you can't, the code says we have to take that area back.
Right. So if you guys are gonna,
It's an excuse to do it.
if you guys are gonna start taking back some of those areas, we'll have more work.
But you'll also have some more revenue too. Building permit seconds. Okay, anything else? You good?
I'm good. That's an action item, right? This is just budget though. Yeah, we don't have to do that there.
Okay. So,
Planning and zoning is just more of a brain trust, and we don't need a lot of money.
brain trust. You ever see the Dave going to board meetings? The demand on those guys, that group, I should say.
I don't know how we can do that to them. What it will actually do is extend people out further. Right now, they're getting 2 meetings a month. It all depends upon how quickly we can move through this comprehensive plan. If we can move through the comprehensive plan quickly, once they figure out what they want to do with the land use section, That will free up an extra day every month.
So that second meeting now is a workshop on the comp plan.
That's what we want.
And the last I understood, the comp plan for Donley is just gonna be put on the back burner for a while.
No, it is on June. It's on the end of the list on June. And I'm recommending, really just adopt their maps.
Nothing else.
Nothing else. We don't need to adopt their whole plan and sign the criteria. And I've talked to their planner about that. Talk to them.
What I'm wondering, how does this new law gonna affect Donley?
It's not,
If it says you gotta provide, well, you gotta provide city services in the impact area within 5 years, some kind of a plan. They don't ever do that. So that would,
it might, I mean, they have a pretty small impact area right now and they are kind of growing towards the west. I don't know that they're gonna hit the north and the east areas.
what I'm concerned about is that, in 20 years, 15 years, who knows when, we're gonna be doing have the same issues with Donley as we have with McCall now.
If we adopt their stuff if we adopt their ordinances in the impact area.
Yep.
That's why I just want to do the maps.
Agree. I don't wanna,
That would work out.
we're not gonna do the same thing we did with McCall.
So
Well,
that will probably be the recommendation coming from the planning.
right, it's gotta run through
Yes.
the right group first.
You never know with that planning.
No, it's kind of a flip up the coin and see where it hits.
No, I am not going back there.
Come on, Neil.
I can only take so much abuse.
Come with me.
All right, thanks, Cindy. We're gonna move on down to our next agenda item, which is building. Annette, good afternoon. Come on up. So, what do we got here? 200 more for office supplies, 200 less for cell phone, 100 more for dues and memberships, and 2,300 less for education.
We don't really have anybody.
Gordon's not getting close to any training, still in the air. So you come in with a lower budget of $2,200. I'm impressed.
We're close to retirement age, is that what's going on?
He's not. I don't know. I'm not quite sure. I can't really say it. You gotta talk to HR.
Are you having feelings that he's not gonna be with us longer, or? Damn it.
I don't know. I mean, we're,
Okay, well, we can't do anything until that date is dropped, so.
Yep.
Anything you wanna add? Anything else you wanna talk about? Wanna talk about a budget or anything?
We not wanna mess with that piece that flips on her end?
Education part?
No, that $2,200.
Well, most of that comes from the education part, which is what we would need those funds if we had to take on a new inspector. But at the first year, there's really not that much education, is there?
not really, but didn't we? Now I look, we put in, I had it right.
Well, you don't have
Oh, I apologize.
travel
I
or,
do have a note that was supposed to have it on the Gino's. And that's where.
okay.
So we're missing a line item.
So that'd be for like fuel and hotels. conferences, that kind of stuff.
We've always just had that in the education budget. For some reason.
And you're saying
So-
that's 2,300 for travel?
Okay.
So that changes that number quite a bit. Now we have a plus 100 gain in the whole budget, is that correct? Okay. And then whatever we can do for the aid budget, we won't know until we see at the end. Okay, anything else?
I put 3% of there, we take on more in the impact area.
Well, and that's certainly something that we have to consider too, if we want to wreck the train or not.
There's one train I'd wreck.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, we'll cross that bridge when we get there.
If the bridge is still there.
We're gonna build one out here at the S Bridge.
You gonna build one? Okay, well, if there's nothing else, thanks for coming in. Good job. It's awesome. All right, it's like you've been watching this. You knew that it was your turn.
Yeah.
Next agenda item is a budget workshop with our treasurer.
She's gonna be the hardest one of the bunch.
So Joanna, I'll kind of turn it over to you, but it looks like everything's about the same.
Yes, everything in my B budget is exactly the same. It seems to be pretty reasonable. We're gonna run really tight up against our supplies budget line this fiscal year. That's because we purchased the new monitors for my staff this past fiscal year. So other than that, I mean, everything seems to be pretty reasonable.
The professional services tax deed expenses, but the company that does all your mail-outs, that fee's the same, they didn't raise it?
Yeah, so that fee actually doesn't come out of my budget line. It goes into the general, that Department 18
Oh.
costs and postage costs. The tax deed expenses, that varies each year depending on how many tax deed properties we have. And the way that it works with the budget is that there's offsetting revenue as well as the expense, because any fees that we charge for tax deed or any fees that we incurred for tax deed, such as the title litigation guarantee search that we do on the properties, that fee is then put on the tax bill and we recoup the expense. So anything in that budget line of $20,000 is also charged as a fee and we recoup it. So that's not a direct
So you
expense for my
just
office.
kind of put that in as contingency, basically.
Yes, and it has to be in there because we have to have somewhere to code the expense to, but there's an offsetting revenue line in the exact same amount.
So, do you know what the top of your head did that contract? What she was talking about, mailing out tax bills?
So I am familiar with the
you are?
contract. It's not listed on this line here, but no, those fees have not gone up in the last couple of years.
That's one of the things where it could come back and bite us down the road, but
Yeah.
they haven't raised it, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Another interesting thing is, you know, if you look at the tax deed expenses, you can see in 2022, they were 9364, and last year they were a little over 11,000.
Yeah, and that's just based on the number of tax deed properties we have. So if we have properties pay off before we get to the major fee area,
Sure.
then there's less expense there. But I think one year, and I can't remember which year it was, maybe like 14 or 15, they bumped up, they had about $19,000 in tax deed expenses, and back then there was only 10,000 budgeted in that line. So then they bumped that line up a little bit. But like I said, it's an
It's
offsetting,
reimbursable.
yeah.
It's-
So that one really doesn't, not a whole lot to discuss there. It's mostly just dependent on how many tax deed properties we have. The professional services line, that one you asked about, so we established that as a new expense line when I became the treasurer because I was hoping to provide some professional mailers out with the tax bills, and I was looking to develop a few things that I required a little bit of money to be able to do so. This last year, we ended up having to use that line item to manage all of the public administration expenses. So
okay.
we have the public administration case this year, which is very non-typical. When I first started as treasurer, he was explaining to me the different duties that I would have to do, and I remember him saying, "Oh, you'll probably never have to deal with one of these."
And here you are.
And then here we are dealing with one of them. Anyway,
Those are
so
reimbursed too, aren't they?
they will be reimbursed once the estate is closed, but that can cover multiple fiscal years. So we don't
Okay.
anticipate closing out this estate, at least for the next few months. So, who knows, it may get taken care of by the end of fiscal year '24, but there's a good chance that. So those expenses will be reimbursed. In the past, I used that line, like I said, for the printing of the pamphlet that we developed in my office. We also use that line for if we have a specific training. What else did I put into that line? For you. I have an education line, so that's training.
I got one question on, I got a lot of questions. You got 22 and 23. Why is that flipped?
To see if you're paying attention.
It's just the way that the program does it, it sounds like.
I think it's like 22, or your A budget is substantially more than 23. I was like, well, now why?
That is because in '22, I had 3 full-time staff members in my office, and then in '23, we moved down to 2.
Just down to 2.
And
Oh,
then the half-time position, the wages for that employee come out of the clerk's budget.
you still get a halftime during your busy time?
I do.
So Gabby, is that something you could flip in the program?
I was just sitting here reading and I go,
It's possible, yes.
and finally I looked up high and was like, well, no wonder it looks different.
The other thing that, since you brought it up, Joanne, is the fact that you have these state expenses, so we're breaking that out. Do you feel like we might be getting more?
No, I don't think we'll have any
So hopefully it'd be a one and done kind of a deal.
I don't anticipate any more expenses for this particular public administration case. I can't predict whether or not we will have another public administration case. If that becomes more typical in the future, I would imagine that we would create some budget lines for it.
I think we should.
I think that we had not dealt with a public administration case in Valley County in upwards of 20 years. And so for us to have one now, it was kind of rare.
Explain what that is to me.
So if somebody who resides in Valley County passes away and they have no heirs to administer their estate, the estate, the coroner, and the sheriff's office let me know. And we do our best to try to find somebody who will administer the estate. So extended relative, a friend, a lien holder, such as the mortgage company can process the estate. This particular instance, family refused, close relatives refused. We're actually kind of in a battle with the mortgage company on who's going to process. They didn't want to process the entire estate, but they're wanting to process the sale of the home. So we actually, it was a battle at first, but we come to an agreement and figured out how we're going to handle it. We're going to go ahead and let them process the auction of the home, and let the proceeds from the auction, if they're above and beyond the value of the loan, will go flow back into the estate.
So if the loan gets paid off and there's still X amount of monies that are out there, where do those X amount of monies go to?
So we follow Idaho State Code on distribution of funds to heirs.
And they don't want to have nothing to do with it.
Right, so,
But she gets still all her expenses out of it too.
correct, so all of
But still, I mean,
the
It's not
difference.
fair, no.
Right,
it's weird.
Yeah,
we
that's
don't like to
weird.
advertise them. The difference is if there is family that could process the estate and they refuse to do so, we charge for our time.
Mhm.
So the prosecuting attorney's office and the staff in my office and anybody else who spent time working on it, Valley County will recoup those expenses on man-hours spent processing the estate. If there are no errors to be found at all, then we cannot recoup any expenses from the estate.
Seem like if they refuse, they give up their right to anything. That's the way that should be written. Good grief.
You'll have to bring it up to the legislature.
I know.
Your wife can take that.
Yeah, my wife can take that one. No, I thought that's the silliest thing I ever heard.
Yeah, when I heard that, it's like, what? That's not right. Anything else, Johanna, you want to add to it?
I don't think so. I know that my A budget will probably be changing a little bit, just based on the new staff that we are hiring in the office. I don't know the exact numbers there, so I don't know if I can comment on that, but Mike, HR is fully aware and probably
Yeah, he'll freshen up those numbers and then, you know, like everything else, we'll see how much we got at the end and hopefully it'll be enough for a pretty good bump for everybody, but I'm not promising it to anybody. We really need to see what our new construction is first. We haven't got that number yet, so.
What?
New construction,
On,
the new bill that they did last year, that value, what was it last year, $72 million? Folks should know that. When you take that to delivery, and that's how much cash you create.
okay.
And I think last year was around, what, 400,000?
Not that much.
Just another to me.
The numbers.
And then cash carry forward, there's a lot of things that we still don't know yet. This looks great. Thanks for not coming in and asking for the gold bar.
New construction was 205 million last year,
205 million.
which allowed an additional 169,000 to be put on the list.
205 million. What came through the county last year?
New construction.
New
Construction value.
A lot.
Okay, thank you very much. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Hey, our next agenda item is not till 2 o'clock, so we're gonna go mute and we'll see everybody back here at 2.